So you've heard a lot today about platforms, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about how Autodesk customers and partners are leveraging a new platform from Autodesk called Forge in the design, build, and operate space to really create a competitive advantage for themselves. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the trends. And first of all, I think the interesting part is we're seeing a lot of customers under things like pressure around cost, schedule, design innovation, and they're really trying to figure out how they can bring that sort of design, build, operate process closer together, how they can leverage the data that they've developed in the BIM side and the design side for their models, how they can leverage that throughout the entire process. And today it's not really easy to share that information. Some of the things that we're seeing is, we're seeing technologies kind of cross spaces. So first of all, we're seeing the construction site become much more digital. So you're seeing a lot more digital devices on the construction site so they can get real-time access to design and design information instead of the old paper methods. That's a positive change that we can start to leverage. I think the other one that's interesting is you're seeing the office and the construction site being connected for collaboration. So you're starting to see that BIM model move down into that construction site so people can get real-time access to be able to solve problems and issues as you're working through that design. But we're also seeing convergence in unexpected places. So for example, we're seeing people starting to use tools that came out of the game and film industry to start leverage some of that technology to be able to do collaboration and be able to visualize designs. And then we're seeing technologies from the manufacturing industry come in to help provide some of that design innovation. How can I design a building so that it's more modular? And you saw some examples there of the cottage or the 3D printed houses. All of that technology comes from manufacturing and the way they try to build things more efficiently today. And so we're really starting to see some of that move of that BIM data down into construction, but how is it moving from there into operations and maintenance and into that smart building, as we like to call it? So that's what I'm here a little bit to talk about. We're starting to make that shift. We're starting to try to enable customers to do that, and we're doing that really with platforms. Platforms is really the way that we like to enable those kind of changes. So you might like to think about, if you're an Autodesk customer today, we had platforms like AutoCAD, Revit, Inventor, Max, and Maya that had the ability for customers and partners to build on top of to create their own competitive advantage or extend that product into other industries and other spaces. And really, that's what Forge is all about. It certainly is a technology. It's a technology platform, but it's about an ecosystem that enables you to take that data that you've invested in on the design side and move it into that process of how do I build and how do I operate this building. That's really what we're trying to do. And that ecosystem is something that needs not just Autodesk, but it needs customers and partners to participate because you have the knowledge and the skill set to be able to move that data down, and your ideas will help empower that ecosystem. So I'm going to talk about some of the customers that are doing that today and some of the partners that are doing that today. First of all, what is it? Well, the first thing that Forge is it was a platform for us, for Autodesk. We are, obviously a lot of people know us for our desktop technologies, but we're also, over the last, actually to be honest, 15 years, have been investing in cloud-based technologies and cloud-based products. So for example, BIM 360, which is for design, construction, and operation, is a cloud-based tool. Forge is some of the underpinning web service technologies that we build on top of for our cloud-based tools. So a lot of our file data storage, processing power, the ability to understand what's in a BIM model and provide that into a web browser or a mobile device, for example, that's a lot of the kind of technologies that are in the Forge platform, as well as several automation kind of things, but they're all web service-based, so we use it to build on, first of all. But really, think about it as sort of this ecosystem where we let you take that building information that you have and start exposing it out to the other systems, the other products that you might use, the other people in the ecosystem, really enable them to get access to it without having to have access to that design tool. Not everybody's going to go out and buy a design tool. Not everybody knows how to use a design tool. But a lot of times they want to get access to that data for those processes that happen during that build and operation process. So how do we make that information, that valuable information, get exposed downstream? And that's really where the platform comes into. That's really where the Forge platform comes in. So we have a whole community that's building around the Forge platform, and there's really 3 types of people participating in the platform. First of all, there's partners. So for example, NBS is coming up next, and they're going to talk about how they applied some of the Forge platform tools to some of the problems around building standards and collaboration. So we have partners like we have with our desktop tools that have been building on top of that platform to provide new capabilities either on top of our products or in their own products. We have customers that are using that technology to create a competitive advantage, and I'll talk about a few of those in a minute. And we have system integrators that are sort of guns for hire, that if you don't have the ability to use the platform, but you want somebody to help you build your own competitive advantage, they're there and available for you. Now, an important part about the platform to talk about and why we have this community is that it's a development platform. So you really got to start writing code to leverage the Forge platform. So it's kind of like the APIs and things we had for Revit, where you could build an application on top, or AutoCAD. This is the same kind of thing for the cloud. So let's talk a little bit about some of the customers that have been working on Forge to build their competitive advantage. First one I'm going to talk about is SOooocuteX. They're an architectural and engineering firm, and they focus on building planning. They're in Japan. Interestingly enough, one of the things that they were trying to do is extend their value beyond their design into the operations of the building. And one of the things that they noticed with their own customers is that their customers were spending about 4x the amount of money they did to build the building on operating and maintaining that building. So they saw an opportunity there. They saw an opportunity to take some of the things that they had actually learned by applying IoT technologies to the buildings that they owned and helping their customers learn how they could actually apply that technology in their buildings that they were managing. Now, some of the things that they were really looking at is they wanted to figure out things like the Cisco guy was talking about. I've got who's in a room. Are the lights on? What's the temperature? What's the CO2 level? What's the humidity level? They wanted to have all those systems connected, but they needed a way for the facilities manager to be able to understand what was going on in the building. So it's one thing to have all those connected systems, but how do they understand that in relation to the building? How can they get a visual of what's going on in a particular floor or a particular room? They wanted to leverage the BIM model to do that, and what they were able to do was leveraging the Forge platform. So the Forge platform let them take the BIM model, simplify it, and that's what you're kind of seeing here in the center of the screen, and then start overlaying some of that data that was coming from those IoT sensors. So for example, this one's showing both occupancy, who's in certain rooms, and if they're in those rooms, what's the temperature of those rooms? Or for example, what is the CO2 level or comfort index for that room? Now, they called it discomfort index. Maybe that's a cultural thing. I would think it would be a comfort index, but so what's the comfort level of that particular room? So similar to what the gentleman from Cisco was talking about, the difference here is they wanted to leverage the BIM model as an interface to be able to help that facilities manager understand what was going on within their building. So from within this interface, they're tracking all those IoT sensors. They're visually overlaying the IoT sensor data, and then the facilities managers can make decisions about how they're going to actually control their building. So for SOooocuteX, for them, it's really about an application that they now sell with their package to the owner when they're going out to design the building. So it's really extending their business beyond the design phase and engineering phase into the operational phase and adding value beyond their traditional time cycle that they do today for that particular customer. This is another company. This company's out of Singapore, and I would say they took that original concept of the smart building that Yeshui was talking about, and they really wanted to extend it to the other kinds of data that are part of a building. So, yes, they wanted to do all the IoT sensors, but they also wanted to control the building. So not just monitor it, but control it. They also said, well, there's other things that happen in a building. There are incident management systems. There are security systems. What about those systems? How do we help people get access to those and control those? Now, their target was that they wanted somebody to remote manage a building from off-site. In other words, they wanted to have people to be able to have a central control center with all their properties and be able to understand how to operate, manage incidents, manage security, all of it from off-site. And so they worked with one of their customers, and they built this application that they've now started selling in market, and it's called Aviva. This is a little video on it. In this example, they're showing an airport terminal, and you'll notice they're using the Forge technology as the interface to navigate into the building. Now, once they do and they start looking around, first of all, you'll start seeing these little bits of information pop up. So that's all the information from the different systems that are connected into the BIM model now. They connected all that data in there. Some of this data is from security cameras. Some of this data is from incident management systems. So as incidents come in on that building, they can go select on an incident, get information on that incident. They can select it and have it navigate directly to where it was logged and what's in that area. They can control systems that are within that area. So for example, in that one, they were changing the temperature. They can look at security feed. They can control fan speeds. So they've really integrated the experience into the building, and they've connected it all together, and they're using the BIM model as the navigation for it, because again, the people that are trying to do this are not in the building. And so this gives them a view into what that building does and what it looks like. So this kind of takes it to that next level where you're not just connecting IoT sensors, but you're connecting data, because you have to know the data on that air conditioning system. You have to know the controls. You have to know the incident management system, and you have to get all that information flowing in. So this kind of takes that really to the next level. So speaking of operational side, this one was an interesting one. So DPR Construction, their problem was what they called the handover process, right? So for example, when a building's completed, how do I take all of the information that I have and hand that over to the owner? I've got models, drawings, specifications on all the equipment that came in. You know, for them, it was a pile of stuff on either a shared collaboration site, a DVD, you know, a USB stick, whatever the owner wanted. They were handing this over. A lot of PDF files, a lot of information that really was not connected together. And then it was up to the owner to sort a lot of that out. You think about things like warranty systems and warranty problems that they have. You know, how do they communicate and deal with all that? A lot of different problems that they were facing. And so what they, again, like in Shui, they wanted to really provide value beyond what they did on the construction side into the operation of that building. So they built a product that's called ViewOps. They created a small little division within DPR. I think it's like 5 or 6 people. They even hired some contract developers to help them build the application. And they leveraged a bunch of available platform technologies, Forge being one of those, to build the application. And their primary goal was to provide to the owner really a connected set of information when they delivered the building. So this is an example of one they were talking about. So they do a lot of very technical structures. So for example, they do hospitals, they do labs, they do data centers, they do universities. Very complex buildings, a lot of infrastructure within them. And the example they gave me of how they, in some of their early pilots, really saw a big advantage to this was, again, they leveraged the Forge platform to be able to take that BIM model, bring it into the hands of the owner-operator of that building, and start solving real problems on site. So the one they explained to me was, it was a hospital, let's just say. They don't want me to give the name, but a hospital in San Francisco. And they had a building they were working on that they built for them, and it had a leakage in a wastewater pipe that happened to come very close to an operating theater. And so as you can imagine, there's a big need to get that problem solved quick and with minimum contamination to that operating theater. And so traditionally, we said what they would do is they would go in and they would grab a bunch of drawings. They lay them out on the table, they lay out the systems, they try to figure out where they've got to cut into the wall, what systems are going to be in the way so they don't cause another problem. And they would, you know, maybe a couple hours later, they'd figure out what they'd have to do and try to get somebody out there to start working on it. What they're able to do with this tool that they built, leveraging Forge, is they've got the whole BIM model there. They've got all the systems. They have search capabilities. They typed in the number of the operating room. They got automatically navigated to that room, and then they started turning on and off the different systems that were in the area where the leak was. So they could see exactly what was in the wall and what was going to be in the way and what layer, you know, sort of layered data that was in there. So in 45 minutes, they were able to cut into the wall, fix the problem, and be completely done. So that sold them and their customer, during this pilot, because they hadn't quite made a decision whether they were going to take this product to market or not. So their big thing, they call it situational search, is they're providing a lot of value to their customer by connecting all of that data and information that they leverage or that they have during that operational handover into a connected BIM model. Another simple example is somebody's got a piece of equipment in the building and they want to get the operational specs on it. Maybe they're trying to do some maintenance on it and they want to get the operational specs. Here they can, again, either search based on any information they might have on that or just go based on location. Select that piece of equipment and get all the documents and information that are related to that piece of equipment right there. They don't have to go hunting for it. They don't have to go search for it. So a lot of what they're really trying to do is take all of that information and data they have and now create a connected process so that they add a lot more value to their customer when they deliver that building to them. And their goal, obviously, is to win more business. They want that customer to feel like what they delivered to them was so valuable that they would get continued business from that customer. So that's a little bit about what we have seen in the, let's say, the smart building phase of things. And there's several more examples that we have there, but I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about some of what the future looks like to us. And so because I am going to talk about the future, this is the denial crystal ball slide, right? So I'm going to talk about some things that we are working on in the back room. They are not production software yet. They're ideas that we want to bring to light. And I'd say this is probably in the 12 to 24-month kind of time frame as far as these kind of things being adopted. The reason I thought this was important to you guys, though, is to me it's about this problem of that data that I talked about. So how do I take advantage of that BIM model, and how do I make sure I can take advantage of it all the way through that build and operate process? And today it's usually by shuffling a big BIM model around. We've done a lot with our current Forge platform to make that easier, but we think based on things that our customers that are using it today have told us we could do a lot more. And the place that we really think it's going to help is what we call decoupled systems. And these are systems that they have a design intent when you put it in the in your actual design for the building, but then when they get to that fabrication and installation process, a lot of the information that they need to fabricate and install that is not in that initial design intent. A lot of times there are performance requirements there, but that doesn't help them when they actually want to go and do the actual fabrication and design. So there's usually other systems and tools involved during that make process, that fabrication and installation process, let's just say. And so we see sort of a dividing line there where it's hard to get data from the BIM model, into that costing phase, into that fabrication phase, into that making phase, into that installation phase. And how do we actually empower that? So there's a couple things. I'm going to use this example, like a panelized system. So you can think of it, whether it's exterior curtain wall of a building or interior curtain wall, anything like that is a simple example where the design gives you a great intent and even performance requirements, but it doesn't give you the fabrication model. It doesn't give you the fabrication logic. It doesn't power the machines and tools on the shop floor that are going to go do any kind of cutting or manufacturing or drilling or anything on that. That is not in that BIM model. So how do we help them succeed to reduce that schedule and reduce that cost? Because a lot of times you're waiting for that fabrication to happen to deliver stuff on site. And if that can happen faster because they've got better access to the design intent, that means that schedule and cost start to get reduced. And there's a lot of people involved. There's the architect that might design it, there's an estimator, an engineer, there are production engineers for things that get to the factory floor, shop foremen, machinists, the installer on site, the foreman. All of these different people need different kinds of information. A lot of it originating from that design intent, but you can't hand them all a BIM model. They don't want to consume the entire BIM model. The installer just cares about that piece that he's working on that day. The shop foreman cares about what he's making that day. The estimator cares about the data that helps him estimate his job. So how do you really supply that information that started from that BIM model and give only the data that they care about at the right time. That's really what the problem we're trying to solve, is leveraging that BIM data and leveraging only that BIM data that's really required down through all these different roles in a form that they can consume. So as an example, how do you, for a panelized solution, you care about the points. You care about what those dimensions are of that panel and the performance requirements. You can do a lot for producing all of the things that you need for the fabrication model just from those simple things. So how can you take that data out of Revit, get those information like the key points and the performance requirements, and shuffle them down to the guys that have to do the engineering for the curtain wall? That's the kind of problem that we're working on right now to solve with the Forge platform. Once it's there, how can those mechanical tools consume that data, whether it's Autodesk's or somebody else's? How can you use that data for cost? How can you provide the right data for manufacturing, like cut lists and where the holes have to be drilled and cut lengths? How do you provide the right installation information down on the construction site? Again, all needs to be in different forms. So a lot of what we're investing in right now is allowing you to take that BIM model, allowing you to decide who gets access and what they get access to and in what form they get access to. So we're able to kind of transform that data into different ways. And really what the goal is to bring those processes together so that you don't have the separation between what happens in the design phase, you know, the build phase, and the operate phase. And so you'll start to see some of this technology. So at, I would say at AU in November this year, in our developer conference there, we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing here and some of the ways we're enable that. We'll kind of show some kind of prototype workflows of showing Revit data flowing all the way through into manufacturing systems. You'll start to see some preview on some products that are built on this kind of a technology. And then throughout the rest of next year, you'll start to see more and more of this kind of trend. And again, the goal is to really give you guys the keys to unlocking that building data, the building model that you're creating, and enabling you to better share it downstream so you can reduce those costs, reduce those schedules, and bring that design, build, and operate process much closer together. And that's really what our goal of the Forge platform is. If you want to figure out what you can do with it today, you know, forge.autodesk.com is a place you can go and check it out. You can get started for free, and we have lots of folks around that can help you out. So I have about 6 minutes left for any questions that anybody might have.
How does this relate to quantum?
So the question was, in case you guys didn't hear, it says, how does it relate to quantum? So for those of you that don't know Autodesk code names, we have many, many, many. So this is really trying to bring those concepts of quantum to market, because the idea of quantum was you would be able to slice up that BIM model and share it out to your stakeholders. And this is about taking that concept into technology so that it can underpin Autodesk products and bring that technology to market. Other questions?
Anyone else? Going, come on.
No more geeks in the crowd?
All right, then, in that case.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. Hope you enjoyed it.